Or constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is June 6th in the year of our Lord 2016. Remember, we are a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control and he does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And folks, it's been a frustrating day and a half, I'm telling you. I do apologize. Friday we had the power outages and it messed up something in both of my computers. I have my main computer fixed and it's working very well, but now my streaming computer over there, which I had no problems with before, some reason is just is struggling with the video. So the video might be buffering a little bit at YouTube. I do apologize for that. I'm trying to yeah, I do see it. I do see it buffering a little bit in my preview screen, but I'm going to shut those off so I'm not using up so much bandwidth down there. I have been. I'm slowly looking into some alternatives that I can do to actually stream directly to the internet without having to go through a streaming computer. It's a little box that all that does is just broadcast a signal. That's all it does. There's no. It's called a Raspberry, and I can hook it up, and like I said, all it does is broadcast a signal that I send to it. So I'm looking into that. I'm not sure if I'm going to go that way yet or not. A lot of what's happening with my streaming computer is I'm actually doing a lot more on that. I thought it would handle it, and I'm getting up against my CPUs. So it's either I'm going to get this little computer to actually do the broadcasting, which I'm still doing some research on that, folks. I'll let you know what I find on that. For some reason on this computer, when I had that power outage Monday, everything checked out on Sunday, everything working all right, and what happened on Monday, I had an upgrade with my AVG antivirus, and ever since then I couldn't get hooked up on my my Mona. It's called a Mona server that I have on my big computer that actually allows this computer to talk to my streaming computer. And I went through and got everything figured out with that. That was like the wee hours after I got up this morning. I finally got that working because what happened was between the time when I started doing this two computer streaming, they came out with a new Mona server. And I downloaded that thinking that would work, and I had to set up a few things. I had to go to my router and port forward in my router, and for some reason when we had that power outage on my network sharing, it shut it off, and that was part of the problem also. So I sort of took care of it both ways there as far as my sharing and stuff like that. So it seems to be working great. Like I said, my signal coming off of my other computer over there is not where it should be, and I'm afraid to open up seriously, I'm afraid to open up anything else on my main computer here because it is running good. I'm right about 83% CPU. So if you are watching on YouTube, I do apologize for the lag and everything if it is buffering. I do have the live chat open over on my I gotta get this. Oh, I didn't enter it. Oh my goodness, there it is. I have my live chat open over on YouTube, and I've directed everything. Now, real quick here before we get into the news of the day in the show, if you look in the background, I'm lit up. I'm lit up, folks. I have lights. The desk light that you see over here is a little bit bright, but I need that for my tired old eyes because I do my correspondence, bill paying, filing, and stuff over at that desk. If you see, there's a stack of stuff over there I got to get filed and put away. Of course, on that shelf too, there's this pile of stuff that I got to stack and sort and put away. But I wasted way too much time this weekend on just getting things done. I had a bad day Saturday. Wissam was in town. I still have to do those pages for you folks on the website to get that so you can know where to go to listen to the podcast of it. I haven't heard anything yet about the videos for that. So Just a little bit of housekeeping here. Like I said, I do apologize. I am one more short show note. I am re-recording Friday's show and Monday's show. I did get a podcast audio out of the Monday show, but that will change. I do apologize for this. That will change when I do re-record. I'm almost done doing Friday's show. I'm going to, this afternoon, we'll work on Monday's show, re-recording it on video. I'm going to have to upload that to the YouTube. So it'll probably be sometime tomorrow when both of those shows up, and they'll be a little bit out of order, but at least they'll get up on there. Like I said, right now, everything seems to be working good right now. So I'm knock on wood on the great John Wayne desk here, on the great John Wayne desk. So I have to redo those, and I'm backing up on some of my other videos. I need to do intro videos for not only YouTube but Patreon. I have to redo those. Busy life, busy life. And if you noticed, if you're watching the video and you noticed, I do not have my headphones on, and not that I don't like wearing them, but I'm sporting these. If you can see in the side of my ear here. They're an over-the-ear that go in to my ears, and I monitor the show that way. I need those to monitor the show. I need those to talk on Skype when I have interviews and stuff like that, which hopefully shortly in the near future we'll be getting to some of those interviews, which probably for right now, until I get some more things settled here in the studio, the interviews are probably going to be pre-recorded, and I'll just show them on the show as part of an episode. A lot of things have been happening out there, folks. They've actually arrested somebody for espionage, leaking classified information. I read some articles here in regards to that, and we're going to talk about those things. A couple websites that are, theintercept.com is a news website where they track intelligence things. And I was doing some research about the founders and the editors, and I do that to try to see what their philosophy is. I think at the Intercept they're center left or center anti-freedom that way, but I think it comes and goes with the articles and with what's going on here. But I think people are reading more into that than what they should. To be quite frank. So we're going to talk more about the environment today. We're going to talk, let's see what I got in here. Oh yeah, there's scientific arguments against the Paris climate change. There always has been. There has always been a huge group of scientists, whether climatologists or not, that have not agreed with the status quo on the government-supported scientists that say there is climate change. Let's see, there was another. Oh, yeah. A really good article from Foundation for Economic Education talking about that, and we'll get into that also. All right. Look, folks, summer's upon us. Hopefully, everything's working well for you. Your lawnmowers, your weed eaters, any of your outdoor power equipment. On Friday, we had to fire up my generator to do the show for a while. But things break down, as they always do. And sometimes you can't get the parts locally right in time. And if you can't do that, why not go over to Sears Parts Direct? They have the parts you need. I've never gone over there and not found a part I needed for an appliance or a piece of power equipment. And when you go over there, you get 10% off for lawn equipment parts and more. I got 10% off on the igniter I bought for our propane cook stove, our down in the kitchen. I got 10% off of that also. And if you just use the offer code 90055 when you go to pay for it, you get your 10% off. And I got mine in a couple of days. Cost me a little extra on the shipping. But all in all, I had a good experience, and I got my stove fixed, and my wife was happy with me. So, so if you're the handyman around the house and are fixing things, go to the DanClementsShow.com, and you'll see down there next to the news scroller, Sears Parts Direct, 10% off. All right. Okay, today's daily Bible reading comes from the book of Exodus in the Old Testament. Exodus 33, verses 12 through 13. Then Moses said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring us his people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by your name and have also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray, if I found grace in your sight, show me now your way, and that I may know you, and that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. And the one thing I wanted to point out there was about his grace. And a lot of people, I think mistakenly in the New Testament, I think a lot of people mistake the idea of grace in the Old Testament, saying, well, there was no grace under the Old Testament. Well, there absolutely was, but the grace wasn't fulfilled until Jesus Christ came and died for our sins on the cross, that ultimate act of grace. There was always grace in the Old Testament. Moses found unmerited favor in the eyes of God. Moses didn't do anything special, and the honor and glory that God bestowed on Moses was grace. And I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes we forget that there was grace in the Old Testament, but not like we know it today. But there was grace there, and they didn't put two and two together in the Old Testament. Of course, it wasn't time yet to put two and two together in the Old Testament. Quote meal today is, what is it to serve God and do his will? Nothing else then, or what is it to, let me back up. What is it to serve God and to do his will? Nothing else than to show your mercy to our neighbor, for it is our neighbor who needs our service. God in heaven needs it not. Martin Luther. Good quote there. Short Bible lesson comes from Neil Pollard, and I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've shared one of his lessons on the show. One of the hardest biblical positions to state, and in this lesson he's talking about marriage, divorce, and remarriage. And it is. It's a very tough lesson. It's a tough biblical position to take. And when you go over to the DanClementsShow.com and click on that and read that, always remember, when you're dealing with folks, I don't care what the situation is, that you need to deal with folks with meekness and lowliness of heart. You're not there to punish them. It isn't our job to punish folks. It's our job to show the folks truth and to show them some grace and some mercy. Because we are shown that by our Lord, we need to pass that down the line. Okay, I did notice that like I said, I'm having problems with my streaming computer over there, and I'm gonna research that this afternoon after I work on the Monday video to try to get that fixed so it doesn't do what it's been doing now. So I gotta pump up the volume on my mic just a hair bit for my audio. Okay, a couple things in the news. Reality Winner is charged with leaking classified information, and that was, I actually caught that on the news last night when I was setting up the show. What I do sometimes is I research articles at night while I'm sitting in my recliner watching or listening to TV. I'm sort of doing both. And so I set, like today's show, I set it up last night, which really helped me out today because of the issues I've been having with my computer. But this is by Matt Ford from theatlantic.com. Now, this is one of the articles that I wanted to point out where people, anti-freedom folks on Facebook and social media, are pointing to this article and the other article by The Intercept as proof that Russia was interfering in our elections. Now, and this is something I've been trying to look up. You remember way back, I think it was just before the inauguration or just after the inauguration, where the FBI came out with a report that, and this was something that wasn't supposed to come out, and it came out anyway. I don't know if it was WikiLeaks that came out and exposed this. I'll have to go do some research on this. But you remember when they were saying that the NSA and some of our spy agencies could make it look like if our American agencies were spying on American citizens, they can actually cover their tracks instead of deleting things, which leaves a big hole. They could actually act like they were from a foreign power to do this. Now, a lot of the anti-freedom folks out there forget this. I remember that story, and I got to look that up. I got to make a note of that. The FBI and changing web searches. And this is important because the narrative has been for a long time, and I believe the DNC and Hillary Clinton were the ones that put this forth. The narrative has been that, well, the Russians helped Donald Trump win the presidency. And if you just step back, I don't care if you're anti-freedom or freedom-oriented, if you just step back for a second and think about that statement and think about how diverse our election system is. I mean, there are some precincts in our area that still use paper ballots, and that's okay. We use, and our system isn't even on the internet. Our system, the system we use in our precinct anyway, and throughout a lot of the places in Northumberland County do the same thing here. There is no internet access. The updates do not come across the internet, because I asked about it, and that's what they told me. They said they get their updates mailed to them. So there's no way they can hack into the system because it's a standalone system. They don't have it hooked up to the internet. The tallying, what happens in our district when voting's over, they take the machine and the master. They have like a little computer there, and they take that physically in, and then they download it. They don't do anything over the internet. And the way we do elections in this country, and they're not centralized, is a good thing. Now, in this article here by The Atlantic by Matt Ford, they opine. I'm going to use a big word there. They think that they don't come around and say that we need to have centralized voting, that the government needs to take over and make this all one big thing, because that would just be easier to hack, as far as I'm concerned. Which I don't think they'd have constitutional grounds to do that, because the states are in charge of how they do that, and that's constitutional. But this article here by Matt Ford, where this realty winner is charged with leaking classified information. It was all over the news this morning. One American News Network had it. Talked about it a couple times. She's a 25-year-old federal contractor from Atlanta, Georgia, for violating federal law that prohibits the distribution of classified defense information. Winner is an employee of Pluribus International Corporation, which provides a range of defense and intelligence contracting services to the federal government. Now, as you can imagine, this morning there has been an array of emotions and an array of ideas on both sides. Is she a traitor? Is she a freedom fighter? Of course, Julian Assange from WikiLeaks thinks it's okay that this classified information comes out. I tend to disagree with him on that. I think, and this is, I don't know, and I'm going to try to investigate this a little bit on my own and see how far I can get with it. I don't know how much oversight Congress has over our spy agencies. Because if you recall, last year or the year before, there was an audit being done by the Senate on one of the spy agencies. I think it was the CIA, and here they found out, I think Dianne Feinstein was involved in this, they found out that the CIA was spying on them as they were doing this investigation. And to me, that shouldn't happen. That should never happen. Ever, 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 ever. Should never happen. And so I don't know how much control our actual Congress, whether the House or the Senate, has oversights. I think it's a Senate oversight committee. I honestly don't know how much control they have over our spy agencies. And if there's something, and this gets back to my argument, and I know everything sort of gets intertangled here a little bit, this goes back to my argument about the Senate not being directly elected by the constituents of a state, but appointed by the states, so the states can have a check and balance on the federal government. Now, as states, one of their responsibility is to protect the citizens of that state from an overreaching federal government. And one of the ways they can do that, if they had control of the Senate, was actually holding our spy agencies, CIA, NSA, and I think we have way too many of them to begin with. I think they could boil them down to a couple of them, including the military, and that would take care of our spying. It seems like, you know, and I know different ones do different things. The FBI has, you know, responsibility for intelligence on U.S. soil. The CIA doesn't. But if you believe that that the CIA is not working on U.S. soil, then you have another thing coming. And again, folks, I am recording this feed. I just lost the feed again over on my streaming computer, and see if we can get it back over there. So I'll be uploading this one after the show also. All right. Anyway, getting back over to this with Reality Winner. So there's people out there that think she's a traitor. There's people out there that think she's a hero. And it really, and this is something we can't know yet. I don't even think they're linking this to the Intercept article. There's no proof that this is the exact same stuff that she stole yet from the internet or from the Intercept article. However, these folks are jumping to conclusions about all this stuff over at the Intercept top NSA. Let me get over to that article here real quick here. See, top NSA report details Russian hacking efforts days before the 2016 election. Now, remember what I said earlier, that there was an FBI report out or some intelligence report that was put out saying that they could actually spy on the American people and change the prefix or change something in the coding to make it look like a foreign power was actually doing this. So I don't put a lot of stock in these stories. Now, I was taken to task because I made comment of this. I said, here we still, in this whole article by Cole Matthew over at intercept.com, he published it on June 5th, everything was anonymous. Now, they actually showed redacted images on there, which I have in my on my Word documents that I saved for this. They have actual images for this, okay? However, there's no way you can tell where these images actually came from, if they came from Reality Winner's leak or, you know, what's going on here. And matter of fact, and you know, I'm just spitballing here because I could be right too. Because, you know, I think these things haven't been researched enough. I think that they try to get out ahead of the story and be the first ones to report these things. And then you have folks out there on the anti-freedom side that looks at this and doesn't take the whole scope of everything we've learned since Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump became the candidates for presidency for their respective party, nominees for their respective parties. And so they get this story, and like I said yesterday on Facebook, this was sort of blowing up some of my anti-freedom crowds. Indivisible Group and Common Cause were the two biggest ones I follow. And quite frankly, folks, it's about all I can stomach on following those, because I have some other radical ones I do follow, and some of these guys, when I first started following them, they seemed all right, but they're more conspiracy theorists than anything else. But this could be a red herring by the government to see where the leaks were coming from. We don't know. We don't know. This could have been a sting operation. Like I said, I'm just spitballing here, you know, and this could have been a sting operation to find out who was leaking, and they were leaking some fake stuff here. And like I said, the internet's blown up. You know, at least my Facebook and Twitter, they've been retweeting this all the time. It looks like my open broadcaster over on my streaming computer is just falling off the ledge. I'm going to probably end up redoing the whole system over there and working on that today while I do my correspondence and videos. So I'll be, if you're on YouTube and this is breaking up on you, this will be the first video I upload this afternoon as soon as I edit it, because I got to redo the front end of it real quick. As soon as I edit it and put it through its paces, I'll be uploading it to the internet. So I wanted to put that out about this, and the thought on the show today is, why is what we believe more important than the truth? Why is the narrative that we have hooked our wagons to more important than facts and the truth? And this folks, this really just upsets me. And I just don't get it. Because I'm not more rational than the next guy down the street. I really am not. I did some dumb things growing up. You know, I smoked cigarettes, you know, when I was still in high school. I started smoking in my senior year of high school. I actually started drinking beer in my senior year of high school too. I got out, went in the Navy, and got away from the family and just went wild with drinking and carousing and doing drugs. So, you know, I did a lot of dumb and stupid, you know, especially as a young adult. And my body was telling me, especially with the smoking and the drinking, because I'd wake up some mornings and not remember how I got to the bunk on the ship, which is not a good thing, folks, trust me. I'm not bragging about this, I'm just telling you. My body was telling me the smoking was killing me because I couldn't even climb a flight of stairs on the ship from one deck to another without getting out of breath. Like I said, the drinking was getting to be a problem where, you know, I needed a drink when I got up in the morning and you know, I needed a drink before I went to bed, and you know, it was ridiculous how I was living my life. And when Alan and Dave came along, and you know, I was trying to get my life straightened around, you know, going back to the Catholic Church, and that wasn't working out. You know, they were using reason and they were using logic with me, you know, and you know, challenging what I believed. And when they showed me actual proof, biblical proof, that what I believed or what I believe in wasn't biblical, the way I was living my life, my riotous life, wasn't the best way to live my life. I'm seriously, if I'd have kept going, I'd have probably been dead in a couple of years the way I was going. And I thank God, and I thank Dave and Al for showing me the truth about things. But sometimes what we believe may not always be correct, is what I'm trying to say. When it comes to the environment, there's a lot of people out there that believe what the government tells them about the environment. And when you try to actually, I don't even share these articles sometimes on Facebook or social media or on this program. I don't share these with the intent of, well, I'm going to make them see the truth. I'm going to make them change their mind, because no matter what I do, I can't change your mind. That's something you have to do for yourself. All I can do is put out the information. And so if the information I put out doesn't coincide with your narrative, then you got a choice to make. It's just like Christianity. Whenever the gospel's shared with somebody, they have a choice to make. They either draw near to God or they go further away from God. You're never the same person when information and facts and truths are shared with you. You're just not. Like I said, either you accept the facts that have been proven before you, or you pull away from them, saying, I don't believe that. I'm going to go on believing the way I believe. And this is, folks, we've had 2 generations now at least that have been environmentalism, LGBT issues. Sarah's got 2 daddies, or Sarah's got 2 mommies. You know, these books like that. Just the sexual indoctrination of our elementary school kids, saying that there's alternative lifestyles out there. It's been drummed into their minds that this is correct. And if somebody comes along and says, well, yeah, I don't quite believe that, and this is why I don't believe this, and give them some reasonable, logical arguments researched articles, real life evidence as far as, studies that have been done like on homosexuality, the studies that have been done on homosexuality and the gay gene that has never been found, never will be found. These folks that support abortion on demand, one of the things I remember years ago was, well, where are we going to get the stem cells to do stem cell research? Because there could be a cure for all sorts of things in there. And come to find out that adult stem cells are more malleable and actually do more things than the stem cells you get from the fetus or the placenta. Because and I've read articles about it saying, well, what they think the reason for that is because adult stem cells have coding that the body has put into them, and the baby or the child in the womb, those type of stem cells haven't been programmed yet because they haven't had any advances with embryonic stem cell research, but they have a lot with adult stem cell research. I'm getting off the subject here a little bit, but this has been drummed into people's minds. It's been drummed into people's minds that women have to have abortions. They have to be able to have access to abortions because of rape and incest and all sorts of things, right? The health of the mother. And come to find out, those categories I just mentioned equal up to less than 3% of all abortions performed in the United States of America. And if that's the case, the 97% of the abortions are done for more selfish reasons. But we don't hear that. Same way with the LGBT agenda. Oh, you hear the news and movies and blog articles and all this kind of stuff. To hear them talk, the folks that practice LGBT things are 50-60% of the country. And it turns out they're less than 3% of the population of the country. And yet they're one of the loudest, most vocal groups, and their ideas and positions or political positions and their ideas have been just foisted on the American society, just thrusted upon us to the point that this is all we believe. And when someone comes along and challenges that with actual truth and facts, reason and logic, then we're wrong. But my job here isn't to be right or wrong. My job is to make people think. So I like comments. I got a comment on a video I did last week about the gun control here in Pennsylvania. We have to pay, where I go to get, when I buy firearms, to do a background check costs $25 where I go. And if I buy a gun online, have it sent there, and they do a lot of that, they make a lot of money off of that, it costs me, for the background check, I think it's $18 for the background check and $25 for the handling. And so they, almost $50 to get a firearm in Pennsylvania. But the guy made a mention of that. So I like the feedback. I really do. And I always have my comments open to everybody. I don't defriend anybody on Facebook or Twitter. I did get rid of a lot. I did quit following a lot of folks on Twitter, but I put a tweet out about why I did that. Because I needed to streamline that more for the show than just personal things for me. But if you understand what I'm saying, too many people in America, I'm just going to stick with America right now, but I think this is a worldwide phenomenon though, but too many folks, when they're confronted with actual facts and truth that contradict what they believe, too many folks just ignore that and keep going on at their own peril because of that. With the climate change, these leaks and everything like that. Like I said, real quick, I'm just wondering if this may not be a red herring, like a mole hunt. But I'm just saying, I don't have any proof. I'm just putting that supposition out there. There's and this is happening down in my buddy Dave's neck of the woods down there in Nashville. He lives right outside of Nashville. The mayor of Nashville, and I don't normally have to do this, but I had to blow people down on Facebook because, man, they were just bashing her to no end. This is from the Tennessee Star staff, posted yesterday. I'm committed to meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement, even if the president is not. On Thursday, Nashville Mayor Megan Barry issued a statement criticizing President Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement which in effect declared that as mayor she will not be bound by Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. Now, the staff needs to do the research just a little bit more here, and this is a teaching moment for the Constitution. The Article 1, Section 10 talks about treaties that have to be ratified by the Senate. And this is what I had to say, everybody, and sort of slow things down on, at least on my timeline, on my everybody that follows me, and then the comments I make. As long as she doesn't, or a group of mayors like her doesn't, or a group of governors of states like Jerry Brown out in California said that they're going to follow the Paris Accords. It's one thing to follow them, but it's a whole other thing to actually quantify them into law and bind them on other states. And California does this all the time. They're the first ones to start the commercial driver's license. And when I found out how much it was going to cost, they wanted to pull out of it, but all the rest of the states were too far into it. And they said, no, you have to go along with it. So they lost their behind on that financially. Chickens, laying hens. They prescribe for their farmers in California how big the cages have to be. And if you are going to sell eggs in California, which is a huge market, then your crates have to be inspected by our inspectors, and they have to be, conform to our size recommendations and requirements for laying hens, for egg production. And I don't know why the federal government didn't jump in on that. That's a violation of the Commerce Clause. One state can't tell another state what to do. If you don't want their eggs, fine. They can find another market for those eggs. I love eggs. I eat a lot of eggs personally. But you see the thing here. As long as they're not binding it on another state, as long as they're not going over and signing these accords themselves, because they can't do that. Matter of fact, these accords are, again, I talked about this, and you didn't see the videos because they were all messed up. But the Paris Accord is not binding on the United States to begin with. Just because President Obama had signed it and said he agrees with it, he didn't take it to the Senate to get it ratified. He went outside the Constitution. Folks, that's an impeachable offense for him to do that. For him to violate the Constitution, high crimes and misdemeanors. That, to me, that's a high crime where you're doing an end round around the Constitution and the Senate for verification of a treaty. And he used that. And the left didn't say, the left, the anti-freedom groups, progressives didn't say boo about that. Matter of fact, there wasn't too many folks on the right. There was some, but there wasn't a huge outcry about this on the right. And then we get this articles like this where mayor says, well, we're gonna continue in our city to follow these guidelines from the accord. Well within her right to do so. Well within her right to do so. But may I make a cautionary statement here? If you implement those things of the Paris Climate Accord, you're not only going to lose your job as mayor, because you're not going to get reelected, you're going to take Nashville down. I mean, economically, it's not going to be a vibrant city anymore. You're going to take that city down economically. That's the hugest thing. And Governor Brown out in California is going to just do the same thing to California, although it seems like they don't care. It seems like they don't care what they do out there. They passed the one-payer health Obamacare Light out in California, where it's going to be, everybody's going to be on the same insurance out there. And they said before they even passed it, they don't know where they're going to get the money. And this is what I should go over and put my Convention of the States hats on. This is the one thing I didn't email Mark Levin about this, but I'm going to. This is something we really need to think about as far as an amendment to the Constitution, that and I'm going to use California and Tennessee, and because there's other cities in Tennessee, and I'm not sure about the governor of Tennessee, and Dave, this isn't boding well for folks moving down into Tennessee, but if they get into financial trouble, and this is what California does, they get in financial trouble, they just look to the federal government. That's why they're screaming to the rafters about the federal government withdrawing sanctuary city, or any federal funds from cities who are sanctuary cities. In my opinion, my humble constitutional opinion, there shouldn't be any federal money going to any cities, states, or counties. Show me in the Constitution where they have that enumerated power to do that. Above and beyond their enumerated powers. They have certain enumerated powers they can spend money on. That's fine. But anything above and beyond that, show me in the Constitution we're allowed to do that. My amendment to the Constitution would be that if the state, county, city, municipality, whatever it is, if they get into financial trouble because of their own stupidity, and this is what this is, this mayor down in Nashville, I'm sorry, it's just stupidity, okay? Mayor Barry down there, that the federal government's not going to bail them out. You know, this is, again, this is like a child where there's never any consequences for their actions. They don't get punished. Oh, that would ruin their self-esteem. Everybody gets a participation trophy. There's another school, and I don't have a link up here. I just saw this on the news. There's another school in Indiana, a long list of schools that are getting rid of the Valedictorian Program, and they're going like to colleges where, you know, all the high achievers get recognized, but there's no valedictorian, and, you know, because they don't want somebody recognized above somebody else. And it's like, again, I wish people would go listen to Mike Rowe. I wish people would listen to me about this. Life doesn't work that way. Life does not work that way. In America, in this republic, we're a meritocracy. It's your merit. It's your effort. It's what you put into it, you're going to get out of it, ideology, where you get ahead in life. You know, life's not fair. And there's going to be, for my job, you know, if I'm going for a job, I'm going to compete against other people for a job. That's life. And employers are going to want the best employee they can hire for that position. So they don't have to, you know, a good employee trains up quickly. A good employee tries to understand the environment he's working in or she's working in. Like I was in dispatch. When I came into dispatch, I knew more about computers than anybody else in the room, but I didn't know about that dispatch system. So trust me when I tell you, I sat there for the first like week or 2 weeks. I didn't really do any dispatching. I studied the program that I was going to use for dispatching and really checked out all the bells and whistles of it. And I got to the point that when I got into my second month of actually dispatching, that I was actually ahead of the curve with some folks that had been dispatching in there for years. You know, because I took an interest in it. And I actually, within a year and a half or so, I became the lead dispatcher in there above other dispatchers that were in this office a lot longer than me, because I knew the system. I knew the system inside and out. I knew the drivers. I knew the trucks. I was a former truck driver. I knew more about the business than they did. I was better with the drivers. And trust me when I tell you, I got rough with some of the drivers. And I got called on the carpet a couple times about that. But when they got the driver in there to talk about it, without me in the room, they said I was wrong. Dan was right to do that. I didn't pull any punches. Sometimes I yelled, and maybe I shouldn't have, but sometimes I did yell because some of these drivers just continue to do dumb and stupid. But I got the job and I got the advancements in the job because of the merit, because I put the time and I put the effort and I put the money into it. Not money, well, a little bit, because I had a computer system at home. I could remote dispatch. I did a very good job of that. I had my cell phone. I knew how to forward the phones, you know, to my cell phone. You know, I carried stuff with me. I had a laptop case where I had all the papers and T-checks and all that kind of stuff with me, and I took my job seriously, and that paid off in the end. But we live in where merit is everything in the real world, and these folks out there, they have no clue. And so I think that on the federal government side, we should pass an amendment that states like California don't get bailed out by the federal government, and shouldn't get bailed out by the federal government. It wasn't the federal government's mistakes that got them in the financial situation they are in. And they're continuing to actually compound, out in California anyway, they're compounding the problem. They have a huge pension problem with different teachers unions and other unions in the state. They can't afford the pensions because they're not defined like a 401k. These pensions, some of these pensions, people are actually going to make more retired than they were during their working life. I don't know too many 401ks that actually do that, unless you're really socking it away from the time you're 20, like my son has been doing up until the time you retire. Then you might have a pretty good living off your retirement. But that usually that's not the way it's supposed to happen. And what's the problem is with all these pensions, whether it's the automotive industry or government, whatever it is, what's the problem with these pensions is they're too it's too much. I was trying to find a good word, or there's just too much. They're financially too much for the governments to actually handle. I got a couple videos I want to share with you. Clinton's been on the blame game, and there's also I got a real quick. I'll do this one first since we're talking about spying and everything. Fox News has a report that claims NSA under Obama administration spied on Americans' private information for years, and this has actually been coming out with Snowden and WikiLeaks and everything like that. So give this a quick listen here.
The report claims the NSA under the Obama administration spied on Americans' private information for years. According to Circuit News, the agency admits some of its intelligence collecting violated Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. The Obama administration reportedly revealing their wrongdoing just before President Trump was elected. Earlier this year, the NSA suspended the type of searches that were violating the rules.
All right, earlier this year, they suspended the things that were violating the rules, okay? But this is something we've known for a long time. This came out under the Obama administration, and this is something that constitutionalists, conservatives, freedom folks have been saying since George W. Bush and the Patriot Act. That thing was sitting in somebody's drawer for the right moment to pounce on America, and the Patriot Act was one of the most anti-freedom documents you've ever seen in the world. It actually created a new federal bureaucracy, the Department of Homeland Stupidity, and we still haven't recovered from that one. So this is something that has been going on, but the anti-freedom groups out there were asleep under Barack Obama, under President Obama's administration. They were asleep at the wheel. Didn't bother them. Soon as somebody gets in there that actually defeated, and Hillary wasn't loved by the whole DNC, but at least she wasn't Trump, according to 60 million people, right? But then all of a sudden they woke up. Operation Pink, actually, a couple months ago, I seen a story in passing where Operation Pink is finally woke up out of their hibernation. I don't know where they've been. I mean, there's been wars going on completely clear through the Obama administration. We've been fighting a war against terrorism since people put it at 9/11. It's been way before that. The Iranian hostage situation way back in '79. We've been dealing with Islamic terrorism. Okay, the next one real quick here is Hillary Clinton. I inherited nothing from the DNC. She's on her no blame, and I'm put the fair use in between the two videos. This is her no blame type thing here, and this is pretty funny to me. What she's going to say here, folks. Give this a listen here.
Hillary Clinton is continuing her blame game tour following her 2016 election loss. First, she blamed Russia, then former FBI Director James Comey, and now the Democratic National Committee. One America's Sonny Otoa has more.
She expected a big presidential victory.
We thought we were going to win. That's all I can tell you.
But that was not the case for Hillary Clinton, as she continues to play the blame game for her loss, even slamming her very own party.
I inherit nothing from the Democratic Party.
What do you mean nothing?
I mean, it was bankrupt. It was on the verge of insolvency. Its data was mediocre to poor, non-existent, wrong. I had to inject money into it.
This is the DNC.
The DNC to keep it going.
At a question and answer session in California Wednesday, she also blamed former FBI Director James Comey after he reopened the investigation into her use of a private email server.
He dumps that on me on October 28th, and I immediately start falling.
And the finger pointing doesn't stop there.
The question is, where and how did the Russians get into this?
Clinton takes aim at the Russians, suggesting they received help from Americans to allegedly interfere with the 2016 election.
The Russians, in my opinion, and based on the intel and counter-intel people I've talked to, could not have known how best to weaponize that information unless they had been guided. And here's
Guided by Americans.
Her statements are a far cry from what she often tells her interviewers.
I take absolute personal responsibility. I was the candidate. I was the person who was on the ballot.
In response, President Trump tweeted Wednesday saying, "Crooked Hillary Clinton now blames everybody but herself, refuses to say she was a terrible candidate, hits Facebook and even Dems and DNC." Sani Unatoa, One America News.
All right. And folks, this is this is funny. If you listen in the video, when she was talking about the Russians hacking the elections, and I had to have inside help. When all this came out, she was still running for the presidency of the United States when these first accusations came out. And who was in charge of our intelligence apparatus in the United States of America? It was Barack Obama. Now, let me make a side note here. There's no love lost between the Obamas and the Clintons. There just isn't. They don't like each other. But Donald Trump was not in charge, and it doesn't matter if Flynn or Kushner or anybody else had back channels to Putin or other Russian folks there had relationship with Russians in there. They weren't in charge of the apparatus. They are now, but they weren't back then. So who was in charge of the apparatus when all these leaks and everything were happening, all this quote-unquote Russian collusion with the Trump administration? I mean, come on, folks, let's use some common sense here. You know, that one thing we're lacking in society today is absolute common sense. We just don't have it anymore, and it's amazing to me how people make it through their lives without common sense. You know, and common sense is that 6 cents God gives you. It keeps the other 5 cents from making a fool out of you. I'm just saying, folks. Just saying. Okay, where are we going to go to? Let's see what else we have here. Well, there's a good article on Jihad Watch by Kristen Douglas Williams. Scotland. Muslims say Manchester Jihad massacre was inevitable consequences of UK policy towards Muslims. So now let's blame the policy towards Muslims. And this is something that didn't come. I was trying to get this out in the show yesterday, and it just really didn't come out. When I was talking about this yesterday, I learned the truth over the weekend that just because you were raised a Catholic, or just because you were raised a Baptist, or even a member of the Lord's Church, the Church of Christ, Muslim, Hindu, whatever, just because you were raised that way, secular humanist, environmentalist, whatever, doesn't mean that you personally understand what you were taught, because you didn't own it. You didn't buy into it. It was just something mom and dad did. Now, some people did. Some children do. But I would say as a whole, and as I look back over my life, this has been my experience with folks, as a whole, they don't. Too many times I would sit down with somebody to study the scriptures with them, and they'd say, well, I have to go talk to my pastor, or I have to go talk to my preacher or my priest or whatever. They couldn't make the decision on their own because they were never taught how to do that. They never heard of this critical thinking. They never heard these challenges that the scriptures actually bring out to their beliefs, or science brings out to environmentalism, or freedom and the Constitution and the principles of non-aggression and freedom and all that bring out in politics. They were never exposed to that. My goodness, I had a lady on Facebook tell me that my show is constitutionally illegal. I cannot talk about Christianity and religion and politics in the same breath or in the same show. Has to be separation of church and state, so I'm violating the Constitution, in her opinion. I asked her to show me in the Constitution where I'm violating the Constitution, and she never got back with me. I know where she's talking about. She talks about separation of church and state that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Baptist Convention in Connecticut way back when. And he talked about, and the wall was a one-way wall, the government over the churches. Okay, that the government couldn't set up a religion to control the people, but that doesn't mean the people couldn't use the principles that guide them in their lives to inform them when they make decisions if they become part of the government. You know, to me it's pretty simple. But the Muslims over there, like I said, this is over at Jihad Watch. There's a good link over there. It's inevitable consequences of UK policies towards Muslims. What are the UK policies toward Muslims? I mean, they have been totally open, allowing these people to come in, the immigrants to come in, the refugees to come in without being vetted. And this is something that I believe it might be this week or next week that the Supreme Court's going to hear the travel ban executive order. And if they follow the Constitution, like I think they will, because I think Gorsuch is going to be in on this because it's something new that came there. Usually new justices come in, they don't normally rule on former cases that's already been listened to in that. But he will be sitting in on this one. And I think if they follow the Constitution, they're going to overturn the 4th and 9th Circuit courts because and Hawaii, and because their reasoning was erroneous. Their reasoning was not constitutional. So that's a good article over there for you to go wet your beak on as far as, I'm checking my timers over here. I'm sorry, folks. For that, there's a couple other things. I got an article in there by Mike LaChance at AmericanLookout.com. Alumni donors are starting to withdraw donations over campus protests. And this is something I never thought about before, but a lot of colleges do get endowments and things like that from alumni that have made good. And now these alumni are getting kind of scared about these campus protests and everything. So. And there's an article in here about MSNBC's Wallace. Paris exit will cause kids to die from asthma. And this is by Brendan Kirby over at lifezet.com. And this was just published the other day. And again, these folks are not questioning the narrative. And there's, like I said, one more thing real quick. There is an article I'd like you to go see how climate forecasts are like Keynesian models. By Philip Magnus over at FEE.org. And basically what he's saying is the climatologists today are using models that nobody else uses anymore. There's better models to actually use, and if you use those models, they don't say what people think they say. So, well, folks, that's the music. That's the end of the show. Fear not, I'll be back with you tomorrow. It's been the Dan Clements Show. Coach Dan Clements, your Constitution program. Name it, nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.